Okay, so have you ever noticed that when you're trying to, talk about something simple in English, like what you do every single morning,
Right.
it can sound a little bit clunky. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you ever said I waking up instead of I wake up?
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
That's a common mistake.
Totally.
And if this sounds like you, then this deep dive is definitely for you.
Absolutely.
We're going to be zeroing in on how to talk about your daily routine in English.
Yeah,
And one of you out there wanted to really get this right,
for sure.
really master it.
Yeah.
And we've got some great material today from a conversation between two language learners, Alex and Sophie.
Okay.
And they are talking about this very thing.
Great.
And our mission
Uh-huh.
is to really give you the tools and the strategies to describe your day accurately and confidently.
Yeah.
So we're talking about building fluency,
Yeah.
expanding your vocabulary,
Absolutely.
and solidifying your grammar.
It's really the bedrock of so much of the language.
Ex-
Because if you think about it, like so much of our communication centers around,
Yeah,
our day-to-day lives.
Right.
So getting those fundamental building blocks in place,
it's
it's going to allow you to,
to build on that
to build on that, to kind of...
and get more and more complex.
Exactly.
So in this conversation, Alex says to Sophie, I've been practicing English, but I still struggle with forming sentences.
Okay.
For example, I often say, I waking up at 7 a.m. instead of I wake up at 7 a.m.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because he's got the individual pieces, right?
Right?
He knows what he wants to say.
He's got the words wake up. He's got 7 a.m.
Yeah.
But he just needs to put them together correctly.
He's just missing that grammatical glue to get it to all stick together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Sophie's like, Alex, that's a really common mistake. Lots of learners use the continuous form incorrectly when talking about daily routines. Instead of I waking up, you should say I wake up.
Because routines usually use the simple present tense.
It's that habitual action,
Exactly. And it's like,
day in, day out.
yeah.
The simple present is really our go-to for that.
And that's such a subtle difference, right? Just dropping that ing and the helping verb,
Yeah.
but it completely changes the meaning
Totally.
and it just makes you sound so much more natural.
For sure.
And then Sophie goes on to explain, why this is so beneficial to get right.
Okay.
And she says to Alex that talking about your daily routine in English is a really powerful way to improve fluency.
Right.
And it helps you learn new words.
Yeah.
It helps you improve your grammar.
Uh-huh.
And she says it helps you think in English rather than translating from your native language.
Which is huge because once you can make that switch
Yeah.
from going back and forth between languages in your head
Right.
to actually thinking in the target language,
Yeah.
that's when you really unlock that fluency.
That's when you know you've arrived.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So to illustrate this, Sophie gives Alex a really straightforward example of what her daily routine looks like.
Yeah.
She wakes up around 6:30 a.m., then she brushes her teeth, washes her face, takes a shower, gets dressed,
Yep.
has breakfast at 7 a.m.,
Classic.
leaves for school or work around 8,
Yeah.
studies or works,
Uh-huh.
comes home, relaxes, has dinner with her family, maybe watches some TV or reads, and then goes to sleep around 10 p.m.
I love how simple and straightforward that is.
Right?
Because it shows you that you don't need
Yeah.
to use all of this really complex vocabulary
Yeah.
and complicated grammar
Yeah.
to communicate effectively.
It's so reassuring, right? Because you think, oh, I need to be able to tell, these elaborate stories and use all these fancy words.
Right.
But really, sometimes it's just about getting the basics down.
It's about clarity and conciseness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Alex, being a good student, he asks a good follow-up question. He says, oh, that sounds so natural and simple, but what if I want to make it more detailed and learn more vocabulary?
Maybe because he's ready to level up.
He wants more.
He wants more.
And so Sophie's expanded routine is a fantastic example of this.
Okay, cool.
So, for example, instead of just wake up,
Mm-hmm.
she says, I wake up at 6:30 a.m. when my alarm rings.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes I hit the snooze button for a few minutes.
Right.
So right away,
Yeah.
we're getting new phrases like alarm rings and hit the snooze button.
Exactly. And it just paints a more vivid picture
Yeah.
of what's actually happening.
And then she adds, I brush my teeth using mint-flavored toothpaste and wash my face with cold water to help me feel more awake.
I like that she's giving the reason
Yeah.
why she's washing her face with cold water.
Yeah.
Like to wake her up.
Right.
So you're getting a little bit more
Yeah.
insight into her routine.
And so she continues in this way, right?
Yeah.
Adding more and more detail.
Yeah.
So she talks about taking a warm shower, using shampoo and conditioner,
Yeah.
drying off with a fluffy towel,
Oh, I love that word, fluffy.
and then for breakfast,
Yeah.
she specifies scrambled eggs with toast and a cup of coffee during the week, or maybe pancakes with honey on the weekends.
It's making me hungry.
So as you can see, she's naturally introducing all of this new vocabulary
Absolutely.
without it feeling forced.
It's all in context.
Yeah.
So it makes it so much easier to learn.
Right. It's not like you're just memorizing a list.
Right.
You're seeing how these words are actually used.
Absolutely. And think about how you can apply this to your own routine.
Right.
Like, what are the specific details
Yeah.
that you can add
Yeah.
really enrich your description?
What kind of coffee do you drink?
Yeah.
What do you put in it?
What kind of bread do you like for toast?
Yeah, exactly.
All those little things.
Now, Alex is curious about common mistakes that English language learners often make.
Right. Because everyone wants to avoid those pitfalls.
Exactly. So Sophie, being the helpful person that she is, she gives a really good rundown.
Okay.
So she mentions using the wrong tense, like saying, I go into school instead of I go to school.
Right back to that simple present tense.
Exactly.
So important.
She also talks about not forgetting prepositions.
Oh, yeah. Those little words can be tricky.
Like saying, I wake up 6:30 a.m. instead of I wake up at 6:30 a.m.
Exactly. And it's because those prepositions,
Yeah.
they don't always translate directly from one language to another.
Yeah.
So you have to really pay attention
Yeah.
to how they're used in English.
And another common mistake is using too many words.
Oh, yeah. Like being redundant.
Yeah. So instead of saying, I wake up and then I brush my teeth and then I eat breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
you can just say, I wake up, brush my teeth, and eat breakfast.
It's more concise.
Yeah, it's much more natural, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, she mentions incorrect use of articles,
Articles, oh, yeah. Those can be tough.
like saying, I eat a breakfast instead of I eat breakfast.
Right. Because we don't usually use an article
Yeah.
when we're talking about meals in general.
Yeah.
As part of our routine.
Exactly.
So it's like, I have lunch, not I have a lunch.
Now, Sophie also reiterates why practicing your daily routines in English is so good for your learning.
Okay.
It builds confidence.
Mhm.
You learn new vocabulary naturally.
Right.
It reinforces good grammar.
Yes.
And crucially, you start to think in English.
That's the holy grail.
Yes, it is.
Once you can think in English,
Right.
then you're not having to do that translation
Right.
back and forth
Yeah.
in your head.
Now, a lot of learners might be thinking, well, what if I don't know enough vocabulary to describe my routine in detail?
Right. It can feel overwhelming
Yeah.
if you think you have to know all the words
Yeah,
before you can even start speaking.
exactly. But Sophie has some great advice for this.
Okay.
She says, just start with simple sentences using the vocabulary you already know, and then gradually add more details as you learn new words.
So start small
Yeah.
and build up.
She also recommends making a habit of writing down your routine every day.
I love that because writing is such a powerful tool
It is.
for language learning
Yeah.
because it forces you to slow down
Yeah.
and really think about the words
And the structure.
and the structure.
Now, here's a great tip.
Okay.
Try to change at least one element each time you write about your routine
Oh, I got it.
so that you're not just repeating the same thing over and over again.
Keep it fresh.
So day 1, you might write, I wake up at 7 a.m. and drink coffee.
Okay.
Day 2, I wake up at 7 a.m. and drink green tea instead of coffee.
Uh-huh.
And then day 3, I wake up at 7 a.m., drink green tea, and eat an apple for breakfast.
So you're just making these tiny little tweaks,
Yeah,
but you're expanding your vocabulary at
exactly.
the same time.
However, those of you who are feeling a little bit more adventurous,
Okay.
Sophie has some more advanced practice techniques.
Bring it up.
So she suggests practicing using different tenses when talking about your routine.
Okay.
So you could describe the past, like, yesterday I woke up a little late because I didn't sleep well. You could talk about the future, like, tomorrow I will try to wake up early and go for a run before work. Or you could even use the present perfect, like, I have already had breakfast, so I'm not feeling hungry right now.
I love that because it's really helping you
Yeah.
to master those different tenses,
Exactly.
which is so important for fluency.
Another advanced technique is to ask yourself questions in English
Okay.
about your daily routines.
So like testing yourself.
Yeah. So you could ask yourself things like, what are the first 3 things I do every morning?
Uh-huh.
What steps do I take to get ready for the day?
Oh.
Or what do I typically have for dinner and who do I eat with?
I love that.
It's a great way to really get your brain working.
Yeah, and to practice forming
Yeah.
those questions correctly.
Now, this next technique might seem a little bit scary at first,
Ah.
but Sophie recommends recording yourself speaking in English.
Oh, yeah, that can be a little cringy,
It can be.
but it's so helpful.
It's really helpful because you can hear how you sound
Exact.
and you can identify areas where you might want to improve your pronunciation.
Or your intonation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then finally, the ultimate goal is to try to think directly in English
Yeah.
about your routine without translating.
Without that intermediate step
Yeah.
going from your native language to English.
So at the end of the conversation, Sophie gives Alex a nice little summary
Okay.
of all of their key learnings.
All right.
So she says, remember, Alex, for daily routines, we usually use the simple present tense. Adding details and expanding your sentences is a great way to build vocabulary.
Yeah,
It's important to be aware of and avoid common grammar mistakes.
for sure.
Practicing describing your routine in English regularly helps you start thinking in English.
Yes.
And using different tenses and recording yourself speaking can help you improve your fluency.
She covered all the bases.
She did.
That's awesome.
And she finishes with a really nice, encouraging statement.
Okay.
She says, keep practicing and you'll become fluent in no time.
I love that. So positive.
It is.
And so true.
So there you have it.
Uh-huh.
Now that you've heard all about how to describe your daily routine in English,
Yeah.
I want you to think about how you might describe past routines
Okay.
or even future plans.
Interesting.
So how would you talk about what you did yesterday
Uh-huh.
or what you plan to do tomorrow?
Right.
How can you use different tenses to really express yourself fully?
I like it.
And what new vocabulary might you encounter
Yeah.
as you start to explore
Yeah.
these different time frames?
It's a whole new world of language
Yeah,
that's waiting to be discovered.
That's right.
I love it.
All right.
Great deep dive.
That is all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us,
Thanks for having me.
and we will see you next time.
Bye.